Good morning. My name is Molly Smith, and it is my honor to welcome you to the 2020 Counselor Conference, Counseling for Career Resilience. I'm Molly Smith again, and I am the Regional Chair for the San Diego and Imperial Counties Regional Consortium, and we're proud to be hosting this year's conference, the 5th year running. Over the past 5 years, we have grown from 250 attendees to 500 attendees, so we have doubled. Interestingly, we have still maintained our 60-40 split, 60 K-12 counselors and 40% community college counselors. So we want to welcome you all. We're hoping that over the next 2 days, you'll expand your understanding of local and career education pathways. So our work is really centered around middle skills jobs. And what we're talking about when we talk about middle skills jobs are more than a high school diploma and less than a 4-year degree. So that's a big gap in our education system. We, in the past, people could get a high school degree that was very marketable. They could skill up within an organization on the job training. But now, and our education system in the past has primarily focused and channeled students toward 4-year degrees. So that has left a big gap in the middle, and that's the gap that we're trying to fill. And the state has funded us handsomely to do that. And we're just going to tell you a little bit about that today, but you want to go on to the next slide? So this is a little snapshot of what we're talking about when we're talking about median earning wages in San Diego and Imperial counties. And that's who we serve, the community colleges. There's 9 in San Diego and 1 in Imperial County. So as you can see, the top middle skill jobs, high wage, high demand, which is what we support all career technical education, all career education, which is wide and varied. But the high wage, high demand, the top middle skill, as you can see, it's a little bit lower in Imperial County, but it's about a little 50,000, a little bit over as a starting wage. So this is an index of the proportion of middle skill jobs. So there are middle skill, low skill, middle skill, and high skill jobs. So high skill is a bachelor's degree typically and over. There's a correlation with education. So this shows the number of jobs within each county and the proportion of jobs that are middle skill as of 2017, which is the latest that we have. And both, as you can see, have a projected growth, 10% in Imperial County and 7% in San Diego County. So before I thank the huge cast of characters who have, and very talented people who have put this on, we've made a commitment in San Diego with this investment that the legislature has given us to build an infrastructure for students beginning in middle school through high school and into the community colleges. What we want to do is provide students with awareness of career pathways that exist in the community colleges and develop an understanding, not only what pathways are offered, which is the education, develop an understanding of their own interests, skills, and abilities that align with the career options that are available in the local economy. So that's the connection to the employer. So what do students have? What are their interests? What is available, which is what we are required to do, which is align our pathways with the local economy, provide work-based learning experiences to help students succeed and further support their awareness of their career choice, which is engagement with work and with the employers. This infrastructure requires an interconnected support system to guide and support students along their journey. You are part of that interconnected support system to guide and support students along their journey. Over the next 2 days, you will have the opportunity to engage with each other and engage in best practices. I hope you enjoy the excellent array of choices that have been assembled for you. And with that, I want to thank Monica Rojas and Heather Cavazos for their extraordinary work in putting this together, and the regional staff who support all the efforts that we do. So thank you all, our industry partners, our presenters for taking the time and be interested in presenting here, our exhibitors and our volunteers, and especially you for attending. Thank you so much. Heather?
Thank you, Molly. Give a thumbs up if you can hear, hopefully. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Heather Cavazos. I am part of the regional team working with the regional consortium to provide work-based learning and professional development to the region. And I just wanted to go over some, conference help tips because we're in our virtual world now. So it's a whole new thing for us. So hopefully everyone's been able to access our conference platform, Whova, with ease. We do have a helpline, which I will address here. So if you need help at any time during the conference, you can access that. But first, I'd like to go over the conference agenda. Here we are on day one, Wednesday, 12/2. This is our counselor conference agenda over the next 2 days. We know you're all busy, so we thank you, with navigating with students, whether in person or online. So we thank you for being with us during this challenging time. Day one will include our amazing keynote speaker, who's with us here today, followed by 2 sessions of breakouts with breaks or pauses in between. Each session has 7 breakouts to choose from. Day 2 on tomorrow, on Thursday, December 3rd, we will have 1 session with 7 breakouts in the morning, followed by a pause and then a virtual visit to our community college exhibitor booths, which will have live representatives from each college to answer your questions. And then day 2 will conclude with our dynamic EndNote speaker. Next slide. In your Whova conference website, you'll be able to navigate the conference with your left pane. By clicking on the date at the top, you'll be able to view and join breakouts. Next slide. For the conference community. Oh, and also, if you have problems getting into the breakouts, make sure you're using your Chrome in your browser. That will help with access. So if you're in your Chrome, you should be good. In the community sections, be on the lookout for conference announcements. You can ask us questions or network with anybody else. And then the next slide is the conference exhibitors. On your breaks, be sure to check out the exhibitor section where you can view career education programs offered at the 10 community colleges in the San Diego and Puro region. You can see all the colleges over there on your right, in the right-hand side, but when you actually go into the exhibitor tab, you'll scroll down and all the colleges will be there. You can view those today during your breaks, but on day 2, which is tomorrow, Thursday, from 10 to 11 a.m., there will be a live representative from each college to chat and answer questions that you have. So don't forget to check it out because they've put a lot of time and effort to make sure that they're there to answer any questions you have about their career education programs. The next slide is to show you the conference documents. All conference materials, including the 2020 Career Education Guide and Priority Sector handouts, are available in the documents section. This is also where you can find breakout presentations and handouts. So if we've received them from presenters, you will find them all here. As well, you can find them in your actual breakout. And if we don't have them yet, we'll be posting them soon. So check back. We'll be updating these as we receive them. So check back again as much as you want because you will have access to Whova for several days and even maybe months after the conference. If you would like to receive professionally printed colored copies like you have in the past, those of you that know, we bring these in big boxes to the conference. So if you'd like to receive copies of the guide as well as the priority sector handouts, please go to the Whova homepage, scroll all the way down and click on the link where you can go into a Google Doc to enter your request. In early January, we'll do our best to deliver these materials to your district or campus location while following COVID guidelines. And lastly, if you're having any trouble at all during the event, we do have support, live support available for you throughout the entire event. So if you have trouble getting into your breakout Zoom or with anything else, you can visit, again, go to that homepage in Whova and you can get assistance anytime throughout the conference. We have someone monitoring that Zoom link right there, which is being monitored and open the whole time. So you can zoom in if you'd like to share your screen and you have some issues, or you can call the number, or you can email at those links there. And now I'd like to turn it over back to Molly Smith to introduce our keynote speaker.
All right. Thank you, Heather. So it's my honor to get to introduce to you Mary Walshok. I learned about Mary Walshok from a link that Molly Ash, one of our staff, sent and said, you should check this out. And I didn't do it for a very long time. And then I found the link again. And I was like, oh my goodness, this woman is speaking our language. She talks about exactly what we do. And she's at UCSD. So it's my honor to introduce Mary Walshok. She is the chair or the dean of extension at UCSD. She was one of the first women to be hired at UCSD in a senior academic position and has done extensive research and writing on women in the economy, including a seminal book, Blue Collar Women, published in 1990. And I'm interested to read that book because my mother was one of the women who worked in World War II. She is an adjunct professor of sociology at UCSD. She is the author of more than 100 articles and reports on aligning workforce development with regional economic growth, which is exactly what we do. She was a Kellogg Foundation National Fellow from 1982 to 85 and has received numerous awards for her work both in the United States and abroad. She oversees at UCSD a $50 million, 200 employee, self-funded continuing education professional division. So there's much more, please read the bio. I winnowed it down a little bit, but please take the time to read it. So please give a warm welcome, however you can do that, in this environment to Dr. Mary Walshok. Thank you so much, Mary.
So thank you, Molly. And before I go through my slides, I'd like to share two stories. One is personal, and Molly, thank you for mentioning your mother, because I want to tell a story about my mother. And then I'd like to share a professional story with you as a way of helping you understand why I'm so passionate about the work all of you do and the importance of these middle skill jobs, both to the economy, but also to the dignity of the people who do this work. And we tend to undervalue, I think, middle skill jobs. My personal story is a poignant one because Molly mentioned, I did a book with Doubleday called Blue Collar Women. And I got on all the talk shows and it was a really big deal. I dedicated the book to my mother, Molly, and I noted about my mother that she had never gone to college, but because she and my father had started a Swedish smorgasbord, elegant, beautiful restaurant, and she managed the smorgasbord. My mother could decorate a salmon, right? In unbelievable ways with mayonnaise and pickles and beets. And she was so artistic and so creative. And I developed a great respect for how creative people could be, even though they had only a high school education. When my mother read the dedication, she burst into tears, not of delight, but of shame. And because, of course, I have a PhD. Everybody in our family has a PhD or a medical degree or a law degree. How could you do this to me? I never went to college. I'm so embarrassed. And it was a poignant moment. And it made me understand, and you're going to see this in my slides, that how parents and children and counselors and teachers think about work, think about education, really matters. And we cannot have too narrow a point of view. The second context setting, Molly mentioned I'm the dean of UCSD Extension. Extension is a very, very large organization. In our continuing and professional education programs, we do other kinds of pre-college and learning and retirement programs. But just in continuing and professional education, we have 100,000 enrollees a year. And the vast majority are college graduates. Why are they taking extension courses? Because their college degree didn't qualify them for a specific job. Their college degree prepared them to be learners, good active learners, maybe to write and speak and be good at math. But when it comes to getting a job, you still need some specific competencies. So we graduate annually almost as many certificate students as the community college system does, around 3,700 a year. Nothing better than a degree in economics and a certificate in financial management. Nothing better than a degree in biology and a certificate in clinical trials management or in biotech manufacturing. So the reality that we're talking about over the next 2 days spans, if you will, the workforce. Competencies really matter. Even college graduates have to acquire some. But what we know, and it was in Heather's, I think it was in Heather's slide, 38% of the jobs in San Diego fall in this middle skill area. And I think that's very exciting. So I'm going to give you a sort of philosophical overview, beginning with how impressed I am with the career guide publication that you've been provided. And I'll try to weave some of those examples in because I hear what is in that report day in and day out. And being a university person, I tend to interact with vice presidents for research or vice presidents for finance, right? Because they want the college kids with the advanced degrees, but they want us to give them certificates so they can actually do something once they go to work for them. So let's take a look at the first slide. Monica is my aide de camp here. So what I hope I can leave you with is that I think there is a real disconnect in how we think about the workplace. And it's very, very dominated by old jobs, all right? The eras that Molly and I grew up in, where General Motors and General Electric were the big employers, where manufacturing was assembly line and batch and boring and dirty work. Whereas today, manufacturing can be very creative because you're building a heart valve. And if you like to tinker and make stuff, you might really like jobs in new forms of manufacturing. So we really need to understand, as parents, as counselors, and as educators, what are the jobs that are declining and what are the ones that are emerging, the new opportunities. And I think the report you have goes a long way to helping you see that. But a second thing we need to understand is how traditional jobs are being transformed. I did a TED Talk a couple of years ago where I talked about welders and pipe fitters and what a welder did when I was growing up in the 1940s and 50s versus what a welder does today. Similarly with a pipe fitter or a plumber. Even those traditional skilled jobs are being transformed by the kind of work welders do and pipe fitters and plumbers do. So that there's 100,000 unfilled jobs for welders right now across America. And many of them are for manufacturing companies that are designing and developing propellers for those windmill machines for alternative energy. And so a welder today may not be in the hull of a ship welding. He or she may be in the open air working with composite materials and very different kinds of welding arcs. Similarly, in plumbing and pipe fitting, life sciences and biotech manufacturing is on the list that you have of opportunities in San Diego. If you've ever been inside a biotech or a pharmaceutical company, it's all about pipes and water and pressure. It's a pipe fitter's dream. And so we need to understand that our old ideas of plumbers, welders, electricians, there are many, many more opportunities in a cross section of workplaces for people with those skills. I had dinner with friends last night and I was giving this talk this morning, and my friend said, remind them about Bill Howe, Howe Plumbing. He's a multi-millionaire, Mary, and he started out as an apprentice plumber. Because not only can you, in these middle skill areas, have personal expertise, you can build companies, you can build enterprises in an entrepreneurial way that serve many homes, that serve industrial sites with teams of well-trained plumbers, electricians, welders. And finally, we need to get clear about what jobs are declining. And I prepared this slide, which I've used in other talks, is especially poignant now, given COVID. Look at what's happening to retail. I've shared in other talks that across the country, more industrial parks are being driven and research parks than shopping malls. Okay, think about that. And that's partly because the land we need is not for retail. Thank you very much. We can do it online. And that started well before COVID, but COVID has certainly dramatically demonstrated that. But a lot of the work that is in research, development, manufacturing of complicated products, small products that relate to digital medicine or to IT, are growing. And so Horton Plaza, we're all from San Diego and Imperial counties. Horton Plaza was built as a mall when I was a young academic at UCSD. Today, an LA-based development company is transforming it into a technology park. Until 2 months ago, everyone expected the harbor of San Diego, over 12 acres, with the departure of the Navy headquarters down by the Midway, the aircraft carrier museum on the bay, to be hotels, restaurants, and retail. A British company purchased 8 acres of that land and has raised $2 billion to create life science offices, labs, manufacturing space. Oh yeah, there'll be some retail there. There'll be business services there, but it's not about tourism. It's about building new products that have global markets. So we need to be aware of how jobs are, what the emerging jobs are, how existing jobs are changing, and also what jobs are declining. And that's why I spend a lot of time looking at industrial development and what industries are on the rise or what industries are declining, because that's a clue to where the jobs are. So for all of you, the background material you've gotten for this conference begins to give you some insight into that. And I hope conferences like this will continue to give you more and more insight so you can speak with authority and enthusiasm, because there are lots of opportunities that are just different than those we've thought about even 10 years ago. Let's go to the next slide. So I also worry about attitudes about jobs based on old models versus new models. And I mentioned to you in my TED Talk, I did a play, and again, many of you may be so much younger than I that what I'm about to say to you won't make sense. But blue collar jobs, when I was growing up, and my first book was called Blue Collar Women, were semi-skilled and skilled jobs, working in factories, working in gasoline stations. People actually wore blue, shirts and open shirts. And that just got thrown, I got thrown off when I realized that in the sort of hip new industries in media, in digital communications, in IT, you had CEOs wearing blue collar shirts, the blue collar denim shirts that when I was growing up, factory workers wore. And in fact, I should have another name, another title on this list, no collar shirts. I grew up, again, 40s, 50s, girls were still wearing skirts and nylons and boys had to wear, collared shirts. And a guy who wore a t-shirt was either a bum or somebody who never had to interact with the public. Now we have Mark Zuckerberg, walking around in his hoodie and t-shirt. Steve Jobs. So, it's hard to identify, right, where people fit in a kind of social order and a prestige order in terms of work. And so we really need to understand that as these new and changing jobs surface, and they are, not as, that are surfacing, what people wear to work, what kind of social skills or communication skills they need may vary significantly. My son's an attorney. He leaves the house every day in a white shirt and tie because he goes to court. But I have many friends who are high-tech executives, one of whom lives right next door to me, one of the early Qualcomm guys. I've never seen him in anything but a t-shirt and jeans. And he's a multi-millionaire. So we can't stereotype. And so we have to help kids understand that if you like a certain kind of lifestyle or if a work style, or if you want to get dressed up, or if you don't want to get dressed up, that's not a problem. You just have to find the right word context for the way you want to combine your lifestyle and your work. Let's go to the next slide. Now, the attitudes about jobs, and I really want to underscore this because I think we still are telling young people it's about getting hired. It's about writing a resume, doing well in an interview. It's about an employer. You're going to have to impress a potential employer. But sociologists and economists, I'm in a couple of national networks, are predicting that as much as 25% of the workforce age population will be self-employed, will be running their own businesses. And again, your report for this conference points that out. Business services and entrepreneurs. If you're a good web developer, you could be hired by an advertising firm. You could be hired by a hospital to do web development. But you could also put up your shingle online and be a contractor, and every year maybe have 4 or 5 contracts worth anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 a piece to do web development in your own home office or garage. I don't think we're telling kids that that's an opportunity. I mentioned on the one side, the guy who retired in his 50s because he was an early Qualcomm guy, but on the other side of my house is an attorney who had a military career in the law, then got hired by Qualcomm to be on their legal staff, then got, you would never say laid off. He was encouraged to take an early retirement, and now has more business in online legal consulting and making more money than when he was at Qualcomm. Now that's the high-end job. But as I said in my TED Talk, has anybody tried to get a good plumber lately? Has anybody tried to get a good cabinet maker lately? Or a floor finisher? Or a patio deck construction? These are high demand jobs. And they can be done through companies that employ skilled people, or they can be accessed through individual skilled people who have created their own enterprises and put their own teams together. So let's not simplify who the employer is. And of course, over a lifetime, who the employer is may change, right? So early in your career, you learn a lot of skills working for smart, experienced people. I'd go to work for Bill Howe in a heartbeat, but I also have an entrepreneurial side. So probably after I figured out the ropes, I'd spin out and create my own plumbing services company. I think the second thing is the type and size of businesses are changing. Molly grew up in an era of large vertically integrated companies. And economic developers would say things like, oh, if we could just get a division of General Motors, or if we could just get a division of Hewlett Packard, or if we could just get a division of General Electric to move to our town, they would create the jobs and they would provide jobs. The reality is we're in a global economy. Employment, large companies are dispersed all over the world. A local company that's many of you too young to know about sleep apnea, but they created a machine, it's ResMed, to help people with sleep apnea. They're based here. They do $12 billion a year. They have about 200 employees here. They have employees in Sweden. They have employees in Singapore. And so even large valued companies, even Qualcomm has more employees outside of San Diego than inside of San Diego. But a lot of these companies rely on suppliers, catering services. They don't set up their own cafeterias. They contract with people who provide food services, maintenance, landscape services. A lot of these companies, they don't have their own custodial staff or their own landscaping staff. They contract. So as young people think about the opportunities, many of the opportunities exist in being a supplier to or a subcontractor of what in the old days were the large vertically integrated companies. I'm being redundant here when I say as many as 25% of us may be self-employed. And I want to underscore, and I want to urge you as counselors and those of you who are supporting the counselors, and Heather did a great job, point out the earnings capacity. Many college graduates make less by the hour than a well-trained IT support person, a well-trained home healthcare worker, a well-trained and certified plumber. And so if it's about income, yes, overall, college grads have higher incomes than non-college grads. But high school grads, there's a foundation in the Midwest, Lumina Foundation, that I work with. High school grads with certificates earn equivalent, in the beginning at least, to college grads. Overall lifetime earnings may not be as high. So let's, again, not think the only way to make good money is to have a college degree. And again, I remind you that tens of thousands of students in the Berkeley area, in Los Angeles, hundreds actually, in San Diego, college grads are coming back for certificate programs in order to be more employable and more mobile. Let's go to the next slide. So I think the bottom line of what I'm trying to leave you with as your sort of plenary keynote, hopefully inspirational speaker, is that there really are multiple forms of credentialing that are essential, and they're across the lifespan. They don't stop with a high school degree. They don't stop with the first credential or the first college degree. The world is changing with such rapidity, and just in terms of technology and how it's transforming medicine, manufacturing, retail, even the movie industry. Think about it. I grew up with drive-in theaters and movie theaters. If you were super rich, and I grew up in Palm Springs, so there were some of those in the movie industry. Somebody had a home studio where, you could watch a movie at home. And all of us can watch French movies, Italian movies, Mexican movies, HBO, everything, just on our computer. I go to Sweden a lot because of my heritage, and I do a lot of teaching and work over there. And I'm still watching Netflix. And I'm still listening to KUSC classical music in the morning, because that's what I like to listen to. And I'm listening to it in Stockholm, but it's coming from LA. So technology is changing things so rapidly. Can you imagine what it's going to be like in 10 years? But a second really important thing we have to think about is globalization. And I think young people growing up, and often parents, think that the world is sort of the borders of their neighborhood or the borders of their county. And to some extent it is, but they aren't sophisticated about how much the external investment by Chinese companies or by Chilean companies or by Swedish companies is affecting the kinds of industries that are in that geographic space. They aren't sophisticated about how many products and services that are provided in that geographical space are to places, again, like Singapore or like Sweden or Canada or Chile. So what I'm trying to give you a sense of is the products and processes that make up our work, as well as the markets and partners with whom we work. Even though we want to be local, yokel, San Diego County people, they're global and they're changing constantly. That's why you have to continuously upgrade and be knowledgeable. And we, as educators and counselors, have to tell kids, it's okay. You can't know for sure what you're going to be doing 20 years from now, because the whole world may change. But we can help you develop some of the skills that will allow you to embrace change, adapt to change. And that's why one can begin at an entry level, a middle level, or advanced skill level, because they're crossing arenas all the time. When 22 and 23-year-olds are taking UCSD extension courses in accounting, in biotech manufacturing, in OSHA regulatory practices, in clinical trials management, you would say, well, why did they go to college? Well, because they've got to be able, there's a lot of science in some of those areas. And also you go to college, not just for a job. We'd like to think that college prepares people for life, to be good parents, to participate in a democratic society, to make informed decisions. And so all I'm saying is very advanced people can come back for certificates and credentials. Certificate and credential people can move on into undergraduate and graduate programs at different times in their career. It's not do or die at 18. It's a first choice, but you try to make a choice that's informed by all the other choices that you can potentially make moving forward. So the forms of credentialing will vary across a person's lifestyle cycle. I have an 8-year-old grandson, and I was invited by San Diego Magazine to project the future of education. And my grandson is very, very computer adept. This was before COVID. Teachers are getting better teaching online. And I said, my son won't be able to go to a place like UCSD because all the professors talk at you from the front of the classroom, and he already is teaching himself how to play chess and learning Spanish online in his bedroom on his laptop. So he probably won't make it, but he likes math, he likes making stuff, designing stuff. Maybe he'll decide, I want to be an architect. Well, then he'll decide he's got to go to college. All I'm trying to say is that the forms of credentialing that are needed and the styles of learning that are appropriate vary across a life cycle. It doesn't stop when you're 18 or you're 21 or you're 35. Lots of people in their 50s and 60s are retooling, recredentialing. Next slide, and I think this may be my last slide. because we want to have a little time for Q&A. Oh, I have a couple. So sort of in conclusion, I have 2 or 3 slides here for you to consider. And my job as a plenary speaker is to be provocative, not just specific. And I hope I've gotten across the notion that the world is changing faster than we know. So again, it just happened yesterday. I was in a meeting with our Dean of Engineering, who said the knowledge base in engineering doubles every 5 years. So by the time we graduate an undergraduate engineer with a BS degree, the knowledge base has doubled during the time she or he was in college. So things are just moving really, really fast. And that means what industries will continue to exist and be dominant, and what job requirements are central to those industries are going to be constantly changing. And we can't predict all of that, but we can prepare people to be ready and comfortable with that. We can prepare parents to recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty, but in uncertainty, there's also a lot of opportunity. And I think that's an important principle. Let's go to the next slide. We must find alternative ways of credentialing. The community colleges are doing this, but we're doing it too slowly. And I will share with you that as a university extension dean who does a lot of certificate programs with companies like Thermo Fisher and Qualcomm and Illumina, one of the things they like about what we do is 2 things that I think we need more of across society. One, it's industry focused. In other words, employers identify the skills needed, and often the instructors are not credentialed teachers, but hands-on practitioners. So those are 2 principles. And the third is we can do it fast. And community colleges are burdened, as is UCSD, by the way, with our degree programs, with long procedural steps in getting credentials approved and certified and qualifying instructors. We have to get more flexible, all of us, in terms of who is a qualified teacher, what is the source of knowledge we should be tapping into, and how rapidly can we mobilize. So instead of taking 2 years to get a certificate, you can do it in 6 months, or you could even do it in 3 months if you did it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We also must get parents excited about kids going into different fields and counselors prepared to advise them. And again, 100% bravo to all of you in this meeting and in this session, because that's the direction you're moving in. UCSD, UCLA are lumbering institutions that are slowly getting, changing their culture to recognize that this is important. Community colleges have embraced it, but community colleges also need to have the flexibility to move with more rapidity and to engage employers and different kinds of instructors, as do we in the UC system. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, and that illustration on the left is an image of a tapestry that's being woven from many colored threads. And I'm not a linear thinker. I'm an organic thinker. I used to do needlepoint. I love to weave. And I think we need to think in terms of life is a lot of threads of experience, of education, and of training that over time might change in terms of their color or their thickness or their thinness. But over time, if they're constantly being woven together, a person becomes stronger, more skilled, more competent, more knowledgeable, and more competitive. So again, it's a process. It's not a moment in time. It's not an event. And I think if we have that image in mind and say, this experience looks a little strange over here, but one of these days it's really going to pay off for me because I'll weave it in with an experience that I don't even know yet I'm going to have, so that you have kind of knowledge and understanding that allows you over time to have lifelong, satisfying, and well compensated work. And I think our job as educators and counselors is to help young people and their parents see this and say, look, you start with a few threads, but in another few years, you add these, and then you add these, and pretty soon you have a beautiful tapestry. So those are my sort of overview remarks to send you off in your morning sessions. And it looks like I have about 10 minutes if there's any interest in conversation Q&A. And Heather agreed to facilitate that. So Heather, I'll turn to you in case there are any questions.
Absolutely, Dr. Walshok. Thank you so much. If you have questions, feel free to enter them into the Q&A window in your Zoom. You also have a Q&A and chat window in your Whova on the far right, but for this purpose, if you could enter them into the Q&A in your Zoom. We do have a question for you, Mary. We'll ask them as they come in, so we'll do our best to get to all of them. From Reem, will a career, will be a career resources to share with our high school students? Reem, if you could maybe expand on your question, not sure what you're asking. And other questions are coming in. We've got Chris Carr saying, thank you, Dr. Walshok, very impressive. Look for your TED Talk.
Thank you.
And then Karen saying, thank you so much, Mary, for this very interesting and informative presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, bravo, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Walshok. We've got lots of love coming in. So
far. Thank you so much. It's coming back at you because you're the frontline workers. You know, I get to write about it and talk about it, but you work day in and day out with students and parents, and I know it's not easy.
So keep your questions coming if you have questions. We have just a little bit more time. So this is your opportunity to ask Dr. Walshok anything you'd like. Getting lots of love, lots of love.
So responding to the first question that you felt wasn't as clear, I heard it as, for example, the career education publication you created with the 24 pages or whatever, with charts and salaries and lists of jobs. All the school counselors, right, have access to that.
Absolutely, yes. If you look in your in Whova, you go to your documents on the left-hand side in your margin, you will be able to access the 2020 Career Education Guide as well as all the priority sector handouts that Dr. Walshok was referring to. So we do have some more questions coming in.
Okay.
Okay, great. Oh gosh, your dedication to this work is beyond amazing. Another
no, that's not a question, but thank you.
From Leslie, how do we help students and parents find dignity in middle skilled jobs?
I think that's such an important question, and that's why I shared the story of my mother, because I admired my mother, but she felt, because she worked in a kitchen, right? And she wore a uniform in the kitchen, a white uniform, and sensible shoes, because she spent every morning and every late afternoon decorating and preparing food to put on this beautiful smorgasbord. And a lot of the mothers that I, when I was in high school, played golf or were teachers or nurses or librarians, dignified work. And I had never understood that she felt embarrassed by that. And so I think one of the most important things we can do is give both parents and kids access to role models. We run a program at UCSD Extension under the leadership of Dr. Ed Abeta. Some of you may know him. We're in 26 libraries and 6 Ys. We're working in National City and now in San Isidro. These are all pre-college youth development programs, right? Coding academies, academic courses to get kids ready for college or for work. And one of the things Ed discovered is the parents are starting to come with their kids to these after school and weekend programs. And so parents and kids are learning together. And given the diverse society we have, and I don't just mean in terms of ethnic and social diversity, but diversity of experience, what we in sociology call social capital. If you come from a rural area, you've always lived in a small town, you don't know what the big picture in the world of work is. But if you sit with a tutor or in the Malcolm X library and work with your child who's mastering some computer skills, you pick up a lot of good information yourself. And so it becomes a family journey. It's not just a personal journey. So I'm giving you a rather long response, but I think, and I know how hard everybody works already, but I think there are ways to create, maybe not every day, but opportunities 5 or 6 times a year where career days aren't just about the kids, but they include the parents. Because if parents say, oh, you could never do that, or why are you talking about doing that? Well, I heard about it in my career day. We're not going to have the same impact, in my opinion. So that's one example. But also the computer and video materials are our friend. And I'm assuming, Heather, you all, I mean, there's some fabulous programs on careers, by which I mean computer programs, and helping kids access that where they can see people working in a specific environment, talking about what they do. So without a lot of money and without a lot of re-engineering, I think there's small things we can do that give reality to the world of work to kids earlier, a sense of reality. Thank you, computer technology. But also help them be supported by their parents and their family as they make choices, by creating events and activities that aren't just like one counselor with one parent, but a whole group of parents and a whole group of kids. Just a couple of ideas.
Thank you, Dr. Walshok. We do have questions pouring in, so I'll go ahead and ask. We have just about 6 more minutes, so we'll get to as many as we can. We have a question from Jacob. Good morning, Dr. Walshok. I am an academic career counselor for the United States military. What advice or strategies would you give my service members looking to transition careers?
Oh, you have the creme de la creme of the potential workforce. And so I would start with, and I think I would be reinforced by my colleagues who are in this meeting and on the screen today, that showing up on time, being disciplined, knowing how to read a manual, knowing how to, produce something by the end of the day, get a job done, are really essential workplace skills. So what you have is a cadre of people who are way ahead of UCSD students, let me tell you that, okay? Who always at finals, there's so many grandmothers who die during finals week, I can't get over it, okay? And so there's an ethic and also the ability to work in teams. So then you have to encourage them, and they also, I think, get veterans benefits, right, in terms of education and training, to see that the foot in the door is not there isn't a wall behind that door which you first get your foot in, okay? You get your foot in that door, and guess what? There's going to be another door. And so I always advise young people when they talk with me, don't tell me where you want to end, because where you want to end may not even be possible 30 years from now, because it's going to be a different world. but tell me what you'd like to do right now. And maybe I can advise you on how you can get credentialed for that, or you can have a workplace experience in that so you can take the next step. So I think one is to give them a sense of confidence and honor in the fact that they've already demonstrated they have good workplace skills. Number two, say, look, if you really want to be a rocket scientist, you better go to UCSD. That's your foot in the door. But if you really like technical work, I interviewed for my book, Airplane Instrument Panel Repair Person. And this person was, I mean, she was so romantic about her job. And she said, I used to take watches and clocks apart with my dad when I was a kid. We put them back together again and we'd make things work. I like to make things work. So if I go into an airplane, a jet airplane, this was at the Naval Air Rework Facility, and I am able to find what's slowing it down or making it not work and solve the problem, I am over the top. I've had a great day. And so we have to help people, what is that first step? This particular woman, I learned much later, decided to go back to college, and she did go to San Diego State and get an engineering degree, but that wasn't her foot in the door. Sorry, I'm an academic. I talk too much, Heather.
Thank you, Dr. Walshok. There are many questions coming in, and what we could do is, at this point, since we're ending the session, the keynote portion, we can send those on to Dr. Walshok to maybe answer, and then get back to those that
Respond
are
by
asking
email,
some questions.
sure.
Yeah, so thank you for all your questions. Thank you, Dr. Walshok. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time today. We appreciate you being with us. You're getting lots of claps, and we'll do
Wonderful.
virtual
Thank you.
claps for you, Dr. Walshok. We appreciate,
Great.
again, you being with us. So thank you so much. And as we move to the next slide, I would just like to mention, before we move on to our pause, is that many of you are also asking if we are recording this session, and we most definitely are. And the recording for the keynote, as well as all the breakouts, will be available for you to access via Whova at any time. Just give us some time to get those loaded into the Whova platform after the conference, but most definitely Dr. Walshok's keynote presentation will be accessible via recording. So here we are, it's just about 10 o'clock, and we have reached our pause for the next 30 minutes. Please feel free to attend to personal duties, bio break, what have you. And don't forget to view the college videos in the exhibitor portion if you'd like to do that. Again, we'll have live representatives there tomorrow to answer your questions, but you can certainly view the videos until then. And also, before we go, I just wanted to say that make sure to check back at 10:30 or just before 10:30 as we go into session 1. And again, session 1 will have 7 breakouts to choose from. So you will just go into view session, and then that is where you'll access your link to get into the breakout. And don't forget, at the end of each breakout, we do have a rate session, which you can gives your feedback on what your thoughts about were for the breakout. We also have one for Dr. Walshok for her keynote presentation. If you'd like to rate session, you can do that now. Other than that, we thank you so much, Dr. Walshok, again, and thank you for everyone being here for our keynote presentation. We will pause for 30 minutes and we'll see you back at 10:30. You'll just go straight into your breakouts. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So you can log off of this, and then we'll see you at your breakouts. Thank you, everybody.